the most successful people don't learn how to win more. They master how to lose less. At this time of my life, I was still hustling a multitude of things that eventually caught up with me. I went to jail and lost everything. I had lost my support system for the most part. I had lost a lot of friends. I had lost a lot of family, confidence. I think that I started over because I had to. I feel like, I don't know if I believe in the word opportunity. I mean, I know there's such thing as an opportunity, but I feel like most opportunities you create yourself. So if you created it, was it really an opportunity?
And what are 3 tips you would give to an entrepreneur starting out?
3 tips starting out. My name is Ever Beaumont, aka Ever's Genius.
And Ever, can you tell us a little bit about how you started in business?
So I've had a lot of different businesses. Like most entrepreneurs, I tried and I failed. But my very first one actually was when I was like 5 years old. Coming home on the school bus, I saw my neighborhood had lots of people had weeds. And I was just like, damn, nobody's picking their weeds. So I went door to door and started picking weeds for like $3. And I was making like $100 a week at 5 years old. So that was technically my very first business. Yeah, very lucrative.
No, I mean, obviously my entire business is door to door calling people. So it's the same thing. Most people don't have that comfortability to knock on somebody's door and say, I provide this service.
Now, who's going to tell a 5-year-old no?
That's true. That's true. And then kind of from there, where did you kind of go?
I mean, I had several businesses like growing up. I think as a young adult, I had an anime store that a drop shipping. It was called Your Anime Now. I built I was really into like anime, and I started figuring out that there was good money in actually selling the things that I wanted, right? So I liked anime and I was buying it. I was part of communities that were buying stuff, and I found a drop shipper that was, giving me like the prices 30% less than what the normal prices were. And so literally all I did was, you could do this with code even today. I just literally copied the code of their website and made a mirrored site with a new URL, right? I did this at about 15 years old. And I just, where they had, certain emblems or gifts, I just changed them out to my own. And I just upped the prices by like 30%. And when people would place orders on my site, I would place the order on their site and send it over. And I was doing like $600-$700 a week, in high school doing that, which for me was great money. A big thing about me was I had a daughter at 16. So my motivation to make money was probably a lot higher than the average 10th grader, because I had someone I had to provide and support.
Gotcha. So at 10th grade, you started a drop shipping store, kind of like, not even drop shipping, because drop shipping probably wasn't even around back then. So you're buying it from another store and just upping it on your store for a couple extra dollars to make some more money.
Yeah, it was like rudimentary drop shipping, actually.
And then kind of from there, what do you end up doing? Does that kind of blow up, or?
It did okay. I ended up selling the business for like $7,000, which again wasn't a lot, but I sold it on eBay, and I wanted to get out of it. The problem with that business was I wasn't actually drop shipping, right? I was just placing the orders with another business that would then send it, but then the order would come from the other business. So repeat clients would then find out about this really cheap site that had great prices, right? And then so I didn't get that much repeat business, which kind of made it an uphill battle, After that, I made my first $250,000 selling stolen bikes. That was my first successful business.
So where you kind of ended up making money is kind of obviously stolen bikes. I'm guessing that's a big thing here in Miami, where I used to work at a motorsports dealership, so I know that a lot of bikes would just end up being missing, even if they had low jack or anything like that, and then sold for parts. Right. I'm guessing that's kind of what you're saying?
Well, so it's a crazy story, actually. Like, I had bought a motorcycle because me and my friends were just into motorcycles. But I was very new. I was out into the world on my own, like kind of young. So I was, 17 and a half, 18. I had my own apartment. It was not the best neighborhood. I bought this bike with the money from the Your Anime Now store. And within like 3 weeks, it got stolen. brand new bike, 14, 15,000. And the worst part was I had so little money to purchase the bike that I didn't even have insurance on it at the time. So the following year, I would get decent tax returns because I had a kid to claim. So I'd get three to 4,000 back. There were some guys at the local barbershop that always had bikes. And I went up there and I said, hey, you guys know anyone selling a bike? And they introduced me to this other guy, and he had this beautiful bike, and it was only $5,000, which was crazy because it was really like a $10,000 or $12,000 bike. And he said, just give me $2,500 now. When I get the title in 2 or 3 days, because it's on its way, you can give me the other $2,500, but you could keep the bike till then. To me, in my mind, that sounded like,
it's a great deal.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, stand up person. Thanks. Cool. All right, cool. I get to, have it, and I'm locked in. So after about a week of not hearing from him, I called the DMV, and then the lady literally laughed. She was like, oh, honey, are you sure that bike's not stolen? And I was just like, wow. So my bike had got stolen, and then I accidentally bought a stolen bike. So what I ended up doing was I went on Craigslist and I listed the bike for like $5,000, right? Someone came and bought it, and I made double. Mind you, I only had spent $2,500 at this point. So when I sold the bike for $5,000, I had made $2,500, which at that point in my life was almost like a month's worth of work, at least 2 to 3 weeks. So the light bulb kind of went off, and I tracked down the guy that screwed me over. And when he saw me, he was like, he thought he saw a ghost. I was like, well, chill. Listen, I don't even have no beef with you. Can I buy some more bikes from you? And he thought I was kidding, and I was dead ass. And then so I bought like 3 bikes from him, and then I flipped those for like 5,000 to 7,000 a piece. And then I took that money and I bought 10 bikes, and I flipped those for like 5,000 to 10,000 a piece. And then I got more sophisticated. I said, all right, I'm cutting out the middleman. And then me and my friends, we started stealing our own bikes. And then so now we're making 100% profit. Then I got more sophisticated, and I learned that in New Jersey, when a bike gets crashed, they don't register as a salvage title. So you could buy a salvage title back then and then transfer it to Florida, and it would be a fresh title. So now I could sell stolen bikes with titles. I would just buy the title, and then I would go and look for the bike that I had the title for. Yeah, the VIN numbers wouldn't match, but people weren't looking that deep most of the time. I was selling them cheap. People were fast. Yeah, I made over $250,000 doing that before I got arrested for it. So
and how'd you end up getting arrested for?
So one of the very first people that I sold the bikes to, he knew the bike was stolen. I wasn't a very good criminal yet. So I told him, but he was like, I just want to use it at the track. And at the track, you don't need a plate. So I said, okay, perfect. He can have a track bike that he wants to mod and do all this stuff too, and I can get it off my hands. So anyways, the dummy, he took it out to the street, gets pulled over, and basically tells them about me. So they had been investigating me for a little minute, trying to figure out where I was, who I was. He got back in contact with me, and he said, oh, I want to buy another bike. And usually at this point, I had other people doing it for me. But because I knew him, it was like, all right, cool, I'll just meet you real quick. I had a system, and I went outside of my system. So when I delivered the bike, it was a sting, like 10 cops pulled up. I ran. I jumped over barbed wire fences, jumped off a roof of a building. All I remember is the cop looked like Mario Lopez, like Slater from Saved by the Bell.
Yeah. And then, so what happens there? Obviously,
get arrested, go to jail. It was my first offense. So I was responsible for the restitution. I had to pay for all the bikes. I had to pay for all the damages of the bikes that they could connect to me, along with I had 10 in my house at the time of the arrest. So it was like, and yeah, it just started a rough era in my life. But ultimately, I'm glad it happened because it pushed me into entrepreneurship because I had those felonies on my record. It made it almost impossible to get a job, which forced me to continue doing entrepreneurial things. So after that stage in my life, I never really held a regular job again.
So once you get out of jail, what do you kind of do from there?
Then I started really pursuing my music. I had like a rap career, and I started throwing parties and being a promoter. but using my parties as a catalyst for my music, because it's like, all right, I try to get DJs to play my music, and in Orlando, they just wouldn't do it. So it's like, all right, well, now I'm going to run the club night and I'm paying the DJ and you're going to play the song, or you're not going to DJ here, you know? So I had to create an environment where I had the leverage. And that was just something that I learned early on. Like, leverage is everything, you got to put yourself in position to where you don't got to ask for what you want. You could just tell people what you want.
So you started out as a music career, obviously, probably, this is back in the day before, the TikTok and everything. So you're going to DJ saying, hey, can you play this? And obviously no DJ wants to play a song that from an artist that hasn't been on the radio at that time. It's like, unless you've been on the radio, it's really hard to break a song. So you say, well, I'm going to promote.
I got my buzz up in the city, because I'm doing, I mean, by hand, I might have did 150,000 flyers and CDs by hand myself. I was downtown every single night. I would pass out maybe, at least 1,000 flyers and, a couple hundred CDs, get donations. I never charged people, just, hey, taking donations, that whole hustle. Maybe make $100 a night off the CDs. Not a lot, but it was something, And I'm also promoting the club night. And then when they come to the club night, they're hearing the music. I let other artists perform at my club night, which was something other club nights weren't doing. So it made my club night popular because the artists would come there, they'd bring their fan bases. And outside of it being the performance part, it was just a cool vibe, If artists would come up and say, hey, listen, you bring 10 or more people, I'm going to make sure your record get played. It was still me seeing a lack of something and then providing it as a service in a way, right? So, I know everybody wants to get their record played. Nobody's playing the record. If I make these artists, they don't want to necessarily pay to get their record played, but if I say, hey, you bring 10 people, I'm going to play your record, then that's $100 at my door. You know what I'm saying? And that was just the whole hustle for a while. I ended up later on getting a record deal situation that took me out to Vegas. And that's where I really got some mentorship that allowed me to grow in my manhood, in my entrepreneurship, in my bossness, and help me elevate and reach the next level of finances in my life.
Okay. So, and then from there, do you also start the Sprinter brand business because of that? Like, you're starting to do promotions and stuff?
Yeah. So later, when I started touring, when my music actually got up there, I did my first tour in a Ford Flex. It was terrible. It was miserable. We traveled the whole country, 5 of us in a car with flyers and CDs and clothes, and it was packed and uncomfortable. And I said, never again. So in the second leg of the tour, I bought a Sprinter and fixed it up. And that was my tour bus for the second leg of the Sprinter. At this time of my life, I was still hustling a multitude of things. And that eventually caught up with me. I went to jail and lost everything. But one of the assets I was able to retain after my civil case was one of my Sprinters, which I then started renting out for the first time because it was really just a personal item for me. And, I knew other artists because I had been on tour with them. Like Lil Wayne was my first client because we had been on a Truck Fit tour back when he was promoting Truck Fit through the malls. And it kind of started it. And then it just grew from there.
And kind of, after obviously, getting in trouble, but I would take those also kind of as like failures. How do you kind of overcome those situations? Like, you're starting over from nothing again.
Starting over from nothing was hard. I had lost my support system for the most part. I had lost a lot of friends. I had lost a lot of family, confidence, I think that I started over because I had to, I had kids that depend on me, and I just didn't have a choice. And I really like my freedom and being comfortable. So I just had to find the fire again. That's the best way I could explain it. Like, at my peaks when I was doing things, it just felt like the fire was lit. I didn't have to try to do it. Like I woke up and it's just what it was. And it took me some time, to be honest, to find that fire again, to be able to go hard. And I think it's just like a fire. Like it was a little tiny little spark, and I just had to cultivate it until it was a little fire, and I had to keep blowing on it and adding stuff to it until it became a blaze again. It wasn't overnight, you know?
Okay, so and then to obviously get the Sprinter van going, and you kind of build from there. Like, how do you even build that business? Because are you running ads? Are you doing promotions? Are you handing out flyers? Like, how's that business kind of built?
So the crazy thing about the Sprinter business was that I literally just went on Google AdWords and self-taught myself to like make an ad, and within like 40 minutes the phone was ringing. So at that time, I feel like it was something that was popular, but not everybody had it yet. So timing is like a crucial part of business, right? Like, it's like if you sell sweaters in the summer in Miami, it probably not going to go so well for you. You know what I mean? So, I think that I just had like the right timing, and I had a little momentum because, Wayne was using it. He used it for himself, but he worked with a lot of other people too. And then so they would come, and that gave my Sprinter business a little bit of like social proof early on, and like good reviews, and people would just do it. But I built it on Google AdWords. I at that point I was pricing the Sprinter at $130 an hour with a 5-hour minimum, which is $650. And I realized on Google AdWords, for every $100 to $150 I spend, I would book one of those 5-hour jobs. So I could, at that point, it just became a scaling thing, right? If I spend, 1,000 in ads, I book 10 jobs. 10 jobs equals 6,500 minus 1,000 in ads. That's 5,500 minus, the expenses with gas and fuel. I still will have maybe about $35,000 to $4,000, And yes, that's what I did. I just kept pumping ads. And I feel like that's kind of like what I see now with these high ticket digital sales. They're just pumping ads and figuring out that formula of, how much do I have to spend to make a profit,
Gotcha. And then to obviously going back a little bit, you start doing video production and directing, and now you've worked with people like Little Baby and Dirk, and can you tell us a little bit how you got into directing and video production?
Yeah, so when I came to South Florida, I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life, right? So by God's grace, when I was in Orlando, I beat that my case, and I just got probation, didn't end up going to prison. And at that time I was commuting back and forth from Atlanta before the case, but they wouldn't let me leave the state. So I didn't want to stay in Orlando. I was way too famous and popular there. So I said, okay, what's the next best city? And that was Miami. But what I encountered in Miami, I was already emerging as a director in Orlando, but in Miami, I got no burn because everything here was super Latin. So what I identified in the Latin community was that a lot of them, they did not have a concept of credit. So they were they were renting equipment because they didn't know how to finance it. Equipment in film is very expensive, and it's very hard to just buy outright. If you finance it, it's much more affordable. But because they came from countries that don't have credit systems, or maybe they were just traveling for the video, they didn't. And so I did. I financed the equipment and started renting to these people. And it kind of reminded me of the drug game, because it's like the drug game is like, okay, I'm going to get this product, right? And if I'm selling it to other drug dealers, right? If you're not a petty drug dealer, you're selling to other drug dealers. You're not selling to people. The petty drug dealers sell to people. The big drug dealers sell to drug dealers, right? So if I have this pound and I sell you this pound, now you go sell this pound to, 12, down to people in ounces or nicks or whatever, then those customers come back to you because they want some more weed. Well, what do you got to go do now? You got to come back to me because you don't have the plug on the pound. You know what I'm saying? So camera equipment was kind of the same. Sometimes I would even give young directors this amazing camera setup that I knew they couldn't afford. I said, go shoot 3 or 4 videos with it, because Now that they shot these videos, they look amazing. That's the best video in their portfolio. So what are they doing? They're promoting those videos. So now they're getting clients and they're saying, man, I seen that video you shot. I want a video that looks just like that. Well, what do they got to come and do now?
They got to rent from you?
They got to come to me because I'm the plug. They can't make that quality with what they, with what the little camera they have. They got to come back to the plug. So in my own way, I kind of, some of my clients already have flow and some of them I built my clients, right from the ground up. I made filmmakers, and music video directors so that, because I understood in Miami as a video director, you need to shoot 4 to 5 videos a month just to survive. If you just want to pay rent and pay your car insurance and your car note. So if I got 4 or 5 directors shooting 4 or 5 videos, that's 20, 25 videos a month at 2,000 to 3,000 a video. I was making way more money than every other director in South Florida, low key. And no one even really knew because again, they're on set 4 or 5, maybe even if they were on set 7 times, 8 times a month, I was on set 25 to 30 times a month. It got so big where I was renting out 2 completely full kits at a time on like per day, doing 70, 80,000 a month just off camera rentals. Quietly.
And then how do you kind of become a director? Obviously, I know you're shooting stuff in Orlando, but here the market is very Spanish.
Leverage.
I know you have done a lot of pretty big Spanish artists also.
Yeah, leverage. I mean, after I got my weight up, then, I had everything, without stepping on people's toes, people would just find out about me and I would kind of say, listen, I can shoot the same video they're shooting for less. So I undercut the market a little bit to get my foot in the door, and I could provide more value than my competition, I feel like directing is a very client-based, client-driven space. So we're all serving the same food. It's just who you want to get it from. He might be a little better. He might be a little different, but it's all the same shit at the bottom line at the end of the day. And I just really focused on the things that I felt like other directors weren't focusing on. I just listened to the clients. I came from an industry where listening was really crucial, and I really just listened. I used to listen to women a lot and just listen, right? So when I deal with people, I would just listen and I would hear the things that they complain about. And it was never about the quality of the video. So I didn't focus on that as a director. Not saying I didn't want my videos to be quality, but I just didn't focus on that. I focused on the experience while they were on set. I focused on the turnaround time of the video because that's the complaints I heard. So I felt like if I addressed those complaints over everything, that's what was going to make me successful. And that's what I did. And that's how I retained and got clients. These directors, they're taking 2 weeks, 3 weeks to turn around videos. I would edit the video myself in the beginning and have the video back in 48 hours. Maybe it wasn't color corrected perfectly. Maybe it didn't have all the bells and whistles, but it was turned in. And in that time, they were putting out so much content. They didn't care, 90% of videos are not singles, right? If there's only 1, maybe 2 singles on an album, the rest are just fillers, but they're shooting videos for a lot of songs. They just need the content. And just by addressing what they really needed and prioritizing that, it allowed me to get my little piece of the pie in a space where I really wasn't as good as a lot of the other people.
Gotcha. And then from there, you start making money. What's like a first fun purchase you buy? You buy a Rolex, you buy a car, what do you end up buying?
Man. So 90% of all the money I made, I put right back into the business for years. I didn't get shit for a long time. But when I got to that place, after I bought my first house, and that was after I bought my house and I just kept buying equipment, the equipment game, it's like you're chasing the tail of the cat, man. It's like always the new camera, the new thing. So it was hard to get out in front of that points. But once I did, I bought a McLaren. That was probably like my first toy. And then I probably bought a couple $100,000 in jewelry. I bought a plane. That was my big one, plane. I've bought, since I moved to Miami, I bought four houses. So.
And then I know you bought a food court area. Like, can you tell me how that kind of business
So
works?
I just opened that up. So positioning is like, I have this book coming out in this course called The Genius Mindset. And it's like one of the things I talk about is positioning. And I kind of position myself well around other entrepreneurs and things like that. And a friend of mine, he's actually in the food truck industry business for a long time. And we partnered and we opened up a food court in Wynwood. One of the major expenses of a food truck is where you park it. In Miami, it costs maybe $4,000 to $5,000. So what we decided for a prime location, there's no food trucks in Wynwood because there's no spots less than $12,000, $13,000. So it's just not really feasible. So what we did was we found a spot that we could get permitted for multiple food trucks. And so we rent that spot, and then we rent all the other spots to other food trucks, making our overhead zero. And then we put our truck there as well. So it's a beautiful food court. It's called King's Court. It's brand new. It's doing well. It's already, that's already going to be $20,000, $30,000 a month extra. Just leveraging my credit and just finding that need. Finding that thing that's missing.
What made you jump into that business? Because it's not a business you really know. So what made you kind of like, this is an opportunity I should take?
I mean, people are always going to eat. People are always going to eat. And people are always going to fuck. People are always going to eat. So I like the adult industry for businesses, and I like the food industry for businesses. I feel like those two things, no matter what state the world is in, it could be a world war, it could be an election, it could be a famine, it could be COVID, food and sex. That's all men really need. You take that food and sex, man. So I work in digital marketing too, and these and everything goes hand in hand. I found a way to daisy chain all of my businesses. In a way, the Sprinter business, I rent the Sprinters while I'm on film sets. These artists need somewhere to stay. Okay, I rent them the Sprinters. They need transportation while they're in town. Cool. Sometimes as I'm doing transportation for an artist to say, you need music videos, I'm a music video director. It's worked. It's one that's fed the other, the food truck, we're going to throw events there. We're going to find ways to tie it in with the other businesses. I use my marketing platform. I work with big social media influencers. Instead of charging them, I might barter for them to promote the food trucks. It's all about finding a way to make one thing feed the other so that you're not starting from zero.
And you said you're coming out with a book. Can you tell me a little bit about like what that is and like what that goes over?
Absolutely. I'd love to tell you about my book. It's amazing. It's called the Genius Mindset. And it's just basically a compilation of thought processes, ideas, and attitudes that help you be successful. And if you follow this instruction manual for success, no matter what you're doing, you're going to find success. This is why we see people that are successful, they're successful in many different industries. It's not just one most of the time, because usually what it takes to be successful, it has less to do with what you're doing as a product and more to do with what you're doing as a person, right? And understanding that you're the product. People are buying you. Whether it's, let's say the product is the camera, right? We don't think of it this way, that this Sony, you feel like people are buying Sony, but they're not. They're buying the work you put into the Sony. They're buying the marketing you put into the Sony. They're buying the thought and the time that you put into the Sony, right? So at the end of the day, whether it's you or a group of people, you're still the product. Even if you create the product, you're still the product. At my food truck, are they buying the burger or are they buying the time I put in to making that burger great? It's all a perspective. So at the core, I always look at myself as the product. And as long as me, the product is amazing, and then anything I touch also becomes amazing because it's an extension of me. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I curate success in multiple areas. And I feel like that's what my book is all about. It's just really about honing in on these processes. And sometimes we don't, we got to hear it. We might know it, but we got to hear it for it to click and apply it to our life. And sometimes just having certain strategies to hold ourselves accountable to things allows us to continue to implement the things that we know we should be doing.
And now, do you find it as a mindset, or like the thing that I noticed about you is you kind of just get it done? Meaning, like, a lot of people overthink stuff. Like, you went at 5, 6 years old knocking on doors and saying like, hey, would you pay me to pick your weeds? You then, saw an opportunity in the food truck and said, okay, let me partner with somebody. And then that kind of understands this business. I don't know if I guess that is a mindset, but do you see it more of like those opportunities, or how do you kind of see that aspect?
I mean, I feel like, I don't know if I believe in the word opportunity. I mean, I know there's such thing as an opportunity, but I feel like most opportunities you create yourself. So if you created it, was it really an opportunity? You know what I'm saying? Did they give me an opportunity to pick their weeds, or did I tell them that they need to get their weeds picked?
No, you actually did the work. I mean, a mindset is not doing the work. So it's that aspect of like going door to door and knocking and finding those little gems, maybe not opportunities, but that turn into a business.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like with all self-help books and coaching and everything, like you can have the knowledge, but the secret ingredient at the end of it all is you still got to do the work. There's no real shortcut. Like, you're going to have to do the work. I mean, people that work their whole lives go further than people that think their whole lives. You know what I'm saying? Like if you just take one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, you're going to end up where you want to be faster than someone that is just spends all their time thinking about what's the next move, trying to make the next perfect move. There is no next perfect move. I think I learned that from music, just because I would always be like, this is the single. Once I started getting success, I realized that I don't pick the single, the fans pick the single. I'm going to put the music out and I'm going to watch the numbers and see what responds. And that's going to be the single, instead of trying to tell people what the single is. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like that. Like, you just got to do the work and just see what happens. And if you start getting success in a certain direction, then keep pushing down that direction and see where it goes, and follow that rabbit down its hole. You might have $1 million at the end.
And what are 3 tips you would give to like an entrepreneur starting out?
3 tips starting out. Build your confidence by building your intellect, right? So educate yourself on whatever you're trying to do. That's how you build confidence. Again, you're the product, so you got to sell yourself more than anything. 2, understand that failure is part of it. Every no you get is getting you closer to that yes. I think people look at failure as a bad thing, but every time you fail, you're actually getting a lot closer. And 3, just buy my book, because that's going to save you a lot of time and energy. Why do it the hard way?
With coaching programs and everything, do you feel like they help kind of discipline people, like in that aspect of kind of, if you pay money, say, to a coach, it's almost like paying for a trainer. You do know, I got to show up, I got to do these aspects. Do you kind of see that aspect also?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like this. Like, I mean, you can't want to make millions. Like, the whole basis of business is investing, whether it's time or money or whatever. You're gonna put in before you get out, always. And the more you put in is the more you're gonna get out. So if you don't see the value in paying someone to teach you, then you're already going to fail as a business person, because you're not willing to invest in yourself, which is the first thing. You're the first product, right? So I think coaching and mentorship changed my life 100%. I would not be the man I am today, the individual I am today, the business person I am today, without constant coaching and mentorship. I spend time learning from people smarter than me all the time. Because while I might have experience in one area, I don't know it all, but I want to get to other areas, right? To kind of segue off a little bit, I'm a pilot, so I fly planes. I own an SR-22. Like, now I'm getting into the chartering business. Like, yeah, I have people that have been piloting way longer than me, that know this industry way more, I'm going to ask them 1,000 questions before I get too deep into what I'm doing, because I'm trying to mitigate the amount of mistakes I make. And I say this in my book that you're all going to buy, that, you know, the most successful people don't learn how to win more. They master how to lose less, right? So the higher up you go, the bigger losses can happen. So it's really important to know how to mitigate loss, because it will happen at some point. But as long as you're winning more than you're losing, then you're still up, right? So it's just like, you know, for me, if I I went over a pothole during the movie in the McLaren, it's $15,000. If someone else, it might have been 500. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that was a random thing that happened to me. But imagine if I did that every month, I would hemorrhage myself out of money. You know what I'm saying? So I have to make sure that I'm not hitting potholes when I'm in the McLaren, right? Well, your life is your McLaren, and you got to make sure that you are, you know, not hitting potholes at every turn, because every time you hit the pothole, it's costing you 15 guys, setting you back. It's setting you back from your goals. It's setting you back from your dreams. So if you're trying to get ahead, sometimes people think, you know, I need to do more. And sometimes that's not necessarily all what you're missing. You might be working enough. You might just be making bad decisions on the other side that keeps setting you back, right? So we talk about things like that, mitigating loss, and I call it mastering chaos, you know, because these things are unplanned. So there's a whole section in my book about mastering chaos and how to master chaos. And I feel like that's what I've done, you know, and I felt like I was good at that, because in the streets, you only have one chance. I used to say this to young brothers all the time. You know, when I go speak at places, I tell them to get out the streets. And it's only because you're going to win, and you're going to win, and you're going to win, and you're going to win some more until the day that you lose. And with the streets, the day that you lose, you're going to lose it all. You're either going to lose your life, or you're going to go to jail, and you're going to lose all your money. Between the lawyer fees, what they take from you and everything, you're going to lose it all. So it's not a good business model, right? So that's what I preach to young brothers when I get the opportunity to. But in real business, outside of that world, if you could manage to win, and then when that loss comes, you've already prepared yourself to mitigate it, then you can continue to keep on winning.
The business keeps going.
Keeps going.